All right, so I welcome you all to today's session. We're going to be talking about how we can cook delicious Nigerian meals without seasoning cubes. We have been talking about seasoning cubes all week, if you have been paying attention to my content. And this is a topic that I have been working on for about 6 months now. And it's one of the hidden things that we don't talk about, that people don't talk about a lot, and its contribution to hypertension and high blood pressure. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about what is inside our seasoning cubes, how we can replace them, and I'll give you some recipes that you can use. Okay, practical recipes that you can use to replace your seasoning cubes. This is a very important session we should pay keen attention to, because what we're about to talk about today, it could save your kidneys, it could protect your heart, it could give you back the energy, the peace that you are looking for, and it can also be answers for you. For those of you that are worried about why your blood pressure spikes from time to time, this is one of the hidden reasons for that, okay? So today I'm going to prove to you with science and also with experience and how the food industry works, okay? So without further ado, let's get into the session. So let's look inside a typical seasoning cube. So I think we know what seasoning cubes are. Those are bouillon cubes, right? So your jollof rice spices, your Maggi, your Knorr, your Benny, all these are examples of seasoning cubes. Basically, artificial seasoning that you buy to add to your foods. Okay. So let's look inside what a typical seasoning cube has. A typical seasoning cube has what we call MSG, which is monosodium glutamate. And this is a powerful chemical. What it does is that it works on the dopamine center of your brain, okay? And is part of the reasons why people have heart palpitations for no reason and frequent headaches and also spikes in blood pressure, okay? We also have disodium eosonate. Now, this is a lab-created flavor. And this flavor enhancer is also linked to liver stress, and I would explain that in a moment. Okay, we have over 1,000 milligrams of sodium per cube. So if you look at your Maggi, 1 cube of Maggi, there are usually 2 cubes inside, but just one out of that contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium per cube. And this is almost double your safe daily limits, especially for those of you that are struggling with hypertension. Okay. Now, usually when we want to talk about hypertension and salt, we are usually always focused on salt, right? But nobody ever talks about the hidden sources of salt that you can have in your food, right? And this is one of those hidden sources of salt. So many other things contain salt. All these processed foods that you are eating. A processed food is basically any food that comes in a pack that has more than 5 ingredients. Okay, and that's 5 ingredients. I'm even being generous with it. Any food that comes in a pack and has more than 5 ingredients, ingredients that you find it difficult to pronounce. Okay, that is a processed food. So you don't count the salt and all those things. But when you want to talk about hypertension, we are also so focused on salt, forgetting that other things that we eat contain sodium. Okay, sodium in itself is a very important mineral that your body needs to function properly. Okay, so instead of just focusing or hammering on salt all the time, how about we cut down on the hidden sources of salt that we take in, right? And this seasoning cube is one of them. We also have hydrolyzed vegetable protein. Now, this is a hidden source of processed glutamate. What I mean by hydrolyzed vegetable protein is you boil vegetables like your corn or your wheat. So they boil it in hydrochloric acid, and then they neutralize it with sodium hydroxide. So this process is going to break down the proteins into what we call glutamic acid or glutamate. And that is one of the things that is included into your seasoning cubes. The whole point of this is just to give it taste. Okay. And, consuming something like this, it would cause you to be addicted to it because, like I said, it works on the brain, on your dopamine center in your brain. And it also can be linked to you being tired or you experiencing brain fog. Okay. And then we have artificial meat flavor and your preservatives. And these are majorly made from from chemical compounds. The reason why we say it's artificial meat flavor is it's not actually, meat flavor. If it was meat flavor, you would not be able to keep it for so long. The shelf life it would not be as it is. It would be something that you would just have to consume, as soon as possible. But because we have to sell these things, we have to make sure that, there are preservatives in them to ensure that they stay for a very long time. Okay. And then you have starch, sugar, food colorings, all the other ingredients that make one seasoning cube different from the other. All these things are unnecessary fillers that contribute to metabolic dysfunction, okay, which is basically your organs dysfunctioning. Okay. Now, according to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, in the year 2021, these ingredients are associated with an increased risk of metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a condition where one person is dealing with diabetes, they are dealing with hypertension, they are dealing with high cholesterol, they are dealing with all these diseases that are linked to one another, poor kidney health, poor liver health. So your organs just keep failing one by one. Okay, that's what we call metabolic syndrome. Okay, so this journal, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, says that these ingredients contained in seasoning cubes are associated with an increased risk. So the more you consume these seasoning cubes, your risk of suffering from metabolic syndrome increases. And the hypertension research in 2014 found that even if you consume these seasoning cubes moderately, over time, you're going to have an elevated systolic blood pressure. Okay. Now, most times, we don't really know about these things. And we love these seasoning cubes because they are affordable, they are readily available. And sometimes you may ask, can one cube really do much harm? If I am cooking and, I want to add seasoning cubes, does one particular cube or using just one cube really cause me so much damage? And yes, the answer is yes, it would cause you that much damage because if you are using one cube and you cook 2 times a day and you multiply that by 365 days in a year, and then let's just be generous, you divide your age into you divide your age by 2. Okay, let's just be generous and say that. Just do the multiplication and see how many milligrams of MSG is in there, how many milligrams of sodium. So the compounding effect of these cubes is more than you think because of how frequently we use them. Okay, now let's talk about how our bodies digest these seasoning cubes. So when you cook your meal and you add these seasoning cubes inside, how does your body break down all of these ingredients? So MSG and glutamate is going to stimulate your neurons, okay, your neurons that majorly work on your heart and on your brain. And this is why we say that when you consume them, you are likely to have more headaches, more palpitation, more spikes in blood pressure, especially when you are already dealing with hypertension and high blood sugar. It's just going to increase, your burden. And then we have disodium isocyanate. This one just goes straight to the liver. And it is only your liver that can handle disodium isocyanate, okay? And this is going to be a burden for people who are already dealing with liver disease. Your liver is already struggling and you are giving it disodium isocyanate to work on. Okay, and then we have excess sodium. We know what's excess sodium, or we know where excess sodium goes to, right? So it goes to your kidneys, causes your kidneys to hold on to water, and that water is going to then increase your blood volume. That is going to make your heart pump faster to, move blood around, and that leads to increased blood pressure. And then every other ingredient like the artificial flavors and the colorings, they majorly work on your blood vessels. And this is one of the things that damages your blood vessels, causing cholesterol to stick on it, causing you to have plaquing in your blood vessels, causing damage to your blood vessels, hardening your blood vessels over time so that you have an increased blood pressure and an increased blood sugar. So artificial flavors and colorings are very harmful to your blood pressure and your blood sugar. Okay, so now let's discuss some recipes that we can use to create these seasoning cubes without losing the taste in our foods, right? Because when we talk about replacing seasoning cubes, the next question is my food still going to have taste? Now, honestly, I don't have a problem with you adding salt to your meals, okay? If you want to reduce your salt, you can reduce your salt, but I don't have a problem with you adding salt to your meals. You cooking without salt, I don't think that it is even advisable, okay, for you to cook without salt, but you can definitely replace your seasoning cubes, okay? So let's look at some 3 simple, easy recipes for you that you can use to replace the seasoning cubes. So first we have caramelized onion paste. So what you do is you get 4 large onions and you cut them thinly. And you have 2 tablespoons of oil or butter. Now you can use coconut oil. You have 1 tablespoon of blended locust beans, which is eru. Many of us are very familiar with eru, right? And then we have 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and we have 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. Okay, so in a pan, you heat your oil or your butter on low heat. Okay, on low heat, and then you add your onions and you stir occasionally for a few minutes, and then you add your eru, you add your garlic powder. Now, if you don't have garlic powder, you can use regular garlic, okay? Just make sure that it is well diced or grated, and then you add your thyme, and then you cook it, for a few more minutes. Now, you blend these ingredients together into a smooth paste, and you can use that when you want to cook things like your stews, your jollof rice, when you want to prepare spaghetti sauce, or even as a marinade, if you want to marinate your chicken or your fish when it's time to cook. Okay, so the dosage is 2 tablespoons per salt. With these recipes, you use them in little quantities and then you adjust them according to your taste. So as you are cooking, you continually taste, you continually check for taste to see if it is up to your standard. Okay, so you can use this recipe number 1 for stews, jollof rice, spaghetti sauce, or marinade. Okay, and number 2, we have crayfish and dried prawn powder. So what you want to do is to get 1 cup of crayfish and half cup of dried prawns or dry fish. Okay, then you get 1 teaspoon of grounded ginger, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. Paprika in this case is optional. And then you have half teaspoon of grounded uziza seeds. Okay, so what to do is to blend all of these ingredients into fine powder in your blender. Okay, and then you get a jar and you store it in that jar. Now, when you want to cook your soup or your stews or your yam porridge or your vegetable sauce or your jollof, you are going to bring out this powder that you have created and use in place of your Maggi and your jollof rice spices or any other seasoning that you use. Okay, you are going to use this instead. So you use 1 teaspoon per pot. I say per pot because most of you don't eat for yourselves alone. Okay, especially the moms, you would cook and you are cooking for the entire family, or maybe you are cooking your husband's food separately or even your own food separately because of your health, right? So you use according to your pot. That's the way I graded these dosages for these recipes. Okay, so use 1 teaspoon according to pot, and then you continually adjust to your taste. Okay, and then we have my no blood pressure blend. So this is a spice that is convenient for you if you are struggling with hypertension and you don't want to add salt. You also don't want to add Maggi or any other seasoning cube to your meals. Okay, so what you want to do is to get 2 tablespoons of garlic powder, 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of ginger powder. Now, somebody may say, I don't know where I would find garlic powder. I don't know where I'm going to find onion powder. Where will I find ginger powder? Now, when you see these powders written in these recipes, if you cannot get the powdered form, I want you, if it's a dry ingredient, okay, like the previous, this crayfish and dried prawn powder, you can see it, I wrote powder in the recipe name, right? So this means that it's going to be a dry ingredient. It's not going to be a paste, right? So if you don't have the powders like garlic powder, onion powder, ginger powder, you create with the other ingredients. And when it's time for you to cook, you can now dice your garlic. You can now dice your onion, you can now dice your ginger, okay? So that you do not turn the entire recipe into a paste and not a powder. I hope that what I'm saying is clear, okay? So if you don't have this garlic powder and onion powder and ginger powder, just create with the other recipes. And when it's time for you to cook, you can then add your 2 tablespoons of grated garlic 2 tablespoons of chopped onions, 1 tablespoon of ginger powder, okay? So that way your recipe would now be complete. So you get 1 tablespoon of dried thyme, half tablespoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of grounded scent leaf, and 1 teaspoon of dried uziza powder or smoked paprika. Okay, now the instructions are to mix everything thoroughly and you store them in a dry jar or a shaker bottle. And when it's time for you to cook your stew, your beans, your spaghetti, your porridge, and it's time for you to roast your meat or you use it as a base for other recipes, you bring out this my no blood pressure blend and you use it instead of your salt or your Maggi. Okay. All right. So the dosage is to start with 1 to 2 teaspoons per dish. All right. Now there are so many other recipes. Like I said, I've been working on this for about 6 months. Okay, because I didn't want to just come to you and give you replacements for seasoning cubes without giving you recipes that can actually replace the seasoning cubes. I didn't want to just say, just add crayfish or just add garlic or just add thyme, right? It's good for you. You have to combine these recipes for you to really get the taste that Maggi and other seasoning cubes will give to you. Okay, so you have this ebook that contains 23 healing, taste-rich recipes that replace every seasoning cube in your kitchen. And I graded these recipes so that you can use them even for your native soups and even for English foods like fried rice. Okay. I also included the blend that I use in my stew that gives Maggi that makes Maggi completely unnecessary. Okay, because most times the first food that people would say, did you add Maggi in this food is stew. Okay, so there is a way that you can blend your stew that you wouldn't even notice that you didn't use Maggi in it. And then you have a recipe that I call all dish healing mix. So this recipe is suitable for all dishes you can possibly think of. Okay. And then you have recipes that fit every Nigerian dish. So your soups, your stews, your sauces, your porridge, your pepper soup. And I also have a native seasoning in there for you, for those of you that like to eat your native soups that are very healthy for you. Okay. And then I teach you other things like how you can store each blend properly so that it lasts for weeks or months, even without spoiling. And then you have a complete shopping list, what to buy, what to avoid, and things that you may already have in your kitchen. Okay. And then we know that you have been using these seasoning cubes for years. So if someone tells you to just stop using them, it may be a bit difficult for you. So I have a 7-day taste reset plan for you so that you can retrain your taste buds and finally get used to having these other meals that don't come with seasoning cubes, but rather healthier versions. Okay. And then I also have a bonus healing broth for you that you can use in place of water. How many of you, sometimes when you are cooking and you add water to your meals, that's when you now add even more seasoning? Okay, I know that many of us are already experienced with cooking, so we don't make cooking mistakes, but sometimes the reason we add more seasoning to our food is because of the water that we just added. We want it to still taste good. So this healing broth, you use it in place of water. So instead of adding regular water to your meals, you are now adding a broth that is already tasty. That's where you are not losing taste and you also don't have to reach for even more seasoning. Okay. And the good thing about this is that you can also drink this as a blood tonic, especially if you are senior. That is, if you are in your 70s and above, you can use this as a blood tonic as well. Okay, and then I have common mistakes that you should avoid that would ruin your seasoning, such as you avoiding bitterness, avoiding spoilage, and also wrong combinations and how to avoid them. Okay, now in this recipe ebook, there are no chemical names. I keep all of the ingredients very, very common. So you're not going to find bulky ingredients that you would not see in a regular local Nigerian market. If you see any ingredients in this ebook that you cannot find in a regular local Nigerian market, just let me know. But I have scanned through it and I made sure that all of the ingredients are very easy and within reach for you. And there are also no complicated steps. So they are very, you would have different recipes per category. So if you cannot prepare one recipe because of, maybe you can't find that ingredient that day, another recipe would be able to suit whatever dish you are ready to prepare for that day. Okay, so there are no complicated steps. It's a very simple ebook, and it's also just for your healing and to give your foods this flavor that you are looking for without, damaging your health in the long run. Okay, and I also have a 30-day money back guarantee for you. All right, so getting this ebook is 100% risk-free. All right, so if you go through the ebook, you try the recipes, you don't like it, just send me a message and I will give you a full refund on your money. Okay, so this ebook is priced at 15,000 naira only. Okay, and it goes across all Nigerian dishes. Okay, now because we are just launching this ebook for the first time, I have a launch offer for you. So if you are part of the first 10 people to purchase, you get this ebook at 8,000 naira instead of 15,000 naira. So that is a 7,000 naira discount off for you. Okay, so once 10 people have gotten their ebooks, the price would go back to 15,000 naira. Honestly, I think it is worth more than 15, but we can have it at 8,000 for our launch price. Okay, and I also have a special cardamom offer for just one person. So if you have been meaning to shop cardamom, but you haven't gotten cardamom, you can get cardamom at a regular price of 25,000 and I will give you the ebook for free. Okay. However, this is only available to just one person. Okay. So yes, that's all that I have for you today. If you have any questions, just let me know. All right. So let's go to our quiz. We usually take quizzes at the end of our live sessions. Okay. So why are seasoning cubes bad for you? A, they cause inflammation and damage to your organs. They are not bad for you at all. And they contain a lot of natural ingredients. So why are seasoning cubes bad for you? This is a very simple quiz just to make sure that you were paying attention. Why are seasoning cubes bad for you? Is it because they cause inflammation and damage to your organs, or they are not bad for you at all, or they contain a lot of natural ingredients? Okay, yes, A is correct. And let's go to question number 2. According to the WHO, how many milligrams of sodium are you required to take per day? I hope I wasn't talking too fast, but I said this in the middle of the session. According to the WHO, how many milligrams of sodium are you required to take per day? What is your limit for sodium per day? Is it 5,000 milligrams, 300 milligrams, or 2,000 milligrams? Oh, someone says A, someone says B. It seems we did not get this right. Let me wait for more responses. According to the WHO, how many milligrams of sodium are you required to take per day? What is your sodium limit? Especially those that are struggling with hypertension, you should know your sodium limit, even though, I don't expect you to check. Okay. The sodium limit is 2,000 milligrams per day. Okay. And one seasoning cube already covers 1,000 of those milligrams. All right. So imagine if you're using your seasoning cubes, not just one cube, but more than one cube, and then you add your salt plus the other hidden sources of salts that you take in your diet. You can imagine how many milligrams that ends up, in just one day or in just one meal. So the correct answer to number 2 is C. Okay, 2,000 milligrams per day. All right. Which of your organs does MSG contained in seasoning cubes affect? So I talked about some organs that the ingredients in seasoning cubes will affect. So is it going to affect your legs, your arms, or your brain and heart? Exactly. C, it affects our brain and hearts. And the last question is, did you find this session helpful today? So let me know if the session was helpful or if you think that I can improve. Yes, okay. All right, so we are done with today's session. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will definitely make the replay available. Okay, so you have your free recipes. Okay, if you cannot get the ebook, you have your free recipes. And if you like the free recipes and you want to know more, that's cut across all Nigerian dishes, then you can get your seasoning ebook. Okay. So I have a lot of things included in the ebook for you to make it very valuable. So you have 23 recipes, how to make your stew better, a recipe that cuts across all Nigerian dishes. And then I broke down the recipes into, the different groups that we have, including your native seasoning, how to store them properly, your shopping list, a 7-day reset plan, a healing broth that you can use in place of water, and mistakes that you should avoid. Okay. So for just this launch sale, you are getting it as 8,000 naira only. And if you get cardamom, if you are the lucky person that gets cardamom, if just this offer is available to just one person. So if you shop cardamom at 25,000, you get the seasoning ebook for free. All right. Okay. So that's all for today's session. Thank you so much for joining me live. You can leave if you don't have any questions, but if you do have questions, please let me know. Okay. All right. So we are done with the session. If you have any questions, please let me know. Okay. And if not, you are free to leave. All right. It seems there are no questions today. So thank you so much for joining me live. If you do have questions, just reach me on WhatsApp, okay? And I would answer you. All right. So take care, everyone. I would see you again next week by God's grace. Bye.